It was meant to be an evening of celebration. A simple family dinner, with my son Ethan and his wife Clara, marking Ethan's promotion at work. He had been working long hours for the past few months, and this promotion meant a lot to him. It was something he'd worked hard for, and I wanted to be there to show my support, even though, truthfully, I felt something in the air. Something had changed between me and Clara in recent years. I'd never truly connected with her, but I had always kept my distance, knowing that my son was happy, and that was what mattered most. But I could never shake the feeling that there was something off about her. I arrived at the restaurant a bit earlier than planned, as usual. I always liked to be on time, perhaps a little early, so I could settle in before the rush. The restaurant had a welcoming atmosphere, soft lighting and a gentle buzz of conversation. Waiters moved briskly between tables, and I found myself scanning the room, trying to calm the nerves that had been gnawing at me all day. When Ethan and Clara walked in, I couldn't help but smile. Ethan was dressed sharply, his usual charm and confidence evident in the way he held himself. But Clara, standing by his side, was a different story. She was perfectly put together, as always too put together. Her polished exterior gave nothing away, but I knew better by now. There was a certain distance in the way she looked at me, something that had only grown in the years since their marriage. Her smile was always tight, like a mask she wore to hide something that made me feel like an outsider in my own family. "Hi, Mom," Ethan greeted me, kissing me on the cheek. I could feel the warmth of his hug, but it didn't last long. Clara gave me a brief nod, offering her cold smile, and then the three of us sat down at the table. For the first few moments, we exchanged pleasantries. Ethan talked about his new job and how much it meant to him. He was still the same warm-hearted son I'd raised, but as the conversation flowed, I began to notice the small cracks in his attention. He was distracted, his mind constantly darting back to work. I couldn't help but wonder if he was really happy, or if he was simply caught up in the whirlwind of his career and the demands of his marriage. As the meal went on, Clara was mostly quiet. She barely touched her food, and her eyes would occasionally flicker to her phone, checking messages, a habit that had become increasingly noticeable. Finally, as the waiter cleared our plates and brought over the dessert menu, Clara spoke. "Pearl," she said, her voice silky and smooth, with a trace of mock sweetness. "You know, I've been thinking about something." I looked up from my plate, sensing that something was coming, something I wasn't going to like. "What's that, Clara?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe I was just being paranoid. After all, Clara leaned forward, her eyes never leaving mine. "I think it's time you saw a doctor, Pearl. You've been forgetting things more and more lately. I mean, it's just not normal for someone your age, right?" I froze. My stomach dropped and I felt my heart race. It wasn't the comment itself, but the way she said it. So casually, so openly. It was as though she was speaking to me like I was a child, like I didn't matter enough to be spoken to with respect. My mind raced, and for a split second, I couldn't find my words. I forced a smile, trying to suppress the sting of embarrassment. "I'm fine, Clara," I replied, my voice shaking slightly. "I don't need a doctor. I'm just a little forgetful now, and then that's all." Clara's lips curled into a tight smile, one that barely reached her eyes. "Of course, but don't you think it's a bit concerning? I'm just looking out for you." My blood ran cold. Looking out for me? Was this her way of telling me I wasn't capable of taking care of myself anymore? That I was a burden? Ethan, who had been looking down at his phone, finally looked up. He hadn't caught the first part of the conversation, and his face went from casual to concerned as he noticed the tension building between us. "Clara, what's going on?" he asked, his brow furrowing in confusion. Clara's smile never wavered. She turned to him as if my discomfort didn't matter at all. "I just think it's time your mom got checked out. You know, make sure everything's okay." "She's getting older, Ethan." I could feel my face flush with embarrassment, but I refused to back down. I couldn't let her belittle me like this. Not in front of my own son. Not anymore. "I'm perfectly fine, Claire," I said, my voice tight, each word more forceful than the last. "I don't need anyone telling me what to do. Especially not from someone who knows nothing about me." For a moment, Clara's eyes narrowed, a flash of annoyance passing across her face. But then, just as quickly, she masked it with that cold, calculating smile of hers. "Of course. I just thought you might want to be more careful. After all, we wouldn't want things to get worse, would we?" The implications of her words hung in the air, thick with the tension that I couldn't ignore any longer. Clara was not concerned for me. She was simply making sure I knew my place. In her eyes, I was no longer the strong, independent woman I had always been. I was a liability. Ethan didn't know how to react. His hands were clenched around his glass of water, his jaw set. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the love he had for both of us, but the hesitation in his gaze. Before I could respond, Clara turned her attention back to her food. "Anyway, let's not dwell on it," she said casually, as if nothing had just happened. "We're here to celebrate, right?" But I wasn't going to let it slide. Not this time. "I think I've had enough," I said, pushing my chair back and standing up abruptly. I didn't care if people were looking at me. I couldn't sit there and let Clara humiliate me any further. I couldn't let her tear me down. Not when I had given so much of myself to this family. "Mum, wait," Ethan said, reaching for me, but I shook my head, cutting him off. "No, Ethan. I've had enough." I turned to Clara, locking eyes with her. "You want to talk about my health? Maybe you should look at your own, Clara. I've been watching you, and I know what you've been hiding." Her face faltered for just a split second, a quick flicker of panic. But then she recovered, though I could see the cracks in her perfect facade. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice far less confident than before. I leaned in, speaking low and steady. "I know about the things you've been doing behind Ethan's back, the lies you've been feeding him, and I'm not going to let you keep playing this game." Her smile disappeared entirely now. I could see her hands tremble ever so slightly. Ethan, still in his seat, glanced between the two of us, his confusion deepening. "What are you talking about, Mum?" Ethan asked, his voice low. I didn't answer him. I just looked at Clara, watching her squirm in her seat. "Your secret is out now, Clara," I said softly. "And it's time for Ethan to know the truth." For the first time in years, I felt in control. I wasn't going to let Clara manipulate me anymore. I wasn't going to sit quietly while she humiliated me for sport. I had the truth on my side, and that was enough. As I turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving the stunned silence behind me, I realized something. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need to be part of their twisted game. What I needed was respect. And for the first time in a long time, I was going to fight for it. I left the restaurant, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and determination. My hands trembled, but I kept walking, not looking back. I knew I had done the right thing. No longer would I be the silent participant in Clara's games. The way she had tried to humiliate me, the way she treated me like an inconvenience, she had crossed a line. But deep down, I wasn't entirely sure what had driven me to confront her so openly. Maybe it was years of swallowing my pride, trying to be polite, trying to keep the peace. only to be disrespected time and time again. Maybe I just couldn't take it anymore. I didn't know where I was going, but the cool night air outside the restaurant helped steady my mind. I felt the rush of emotions, anger, hurt, and even fear, but also a strange sense of liberation. I had stood up for myself, something I had never done in the years since Clara had entered our family. But now that the floodgates were open, I couldn't help but feel something else too. A deep, unspoken sadness. The rift between my son and me had only grown over the years. And Clara, in all her cold, calculating ways, was now standing as the barrier between us. I called a cab and sat in the back, trying to collect my thoughts. My son, Ethan, had always been my pride. He was the reason I worked so hard when his father passed. The reason I pushed through the hardest times. Yet here, I was alone again, walking away from a dinner that should have been a joyful celebration. I tried to recall the look on Ethan's face when I stood up and walked out. There was confusion, sure, but there was also something else, something I hadn't expected. His eyes, filled with a mixture of pain and disbelief, made my chest tighten. I knew I had hurt him, and that broke my heart more than I cared to admit. The ride home felt longer than usual. As I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur into one long streak of light, I realized that I had been too focused on surviving the past few years to truly pay attention to the subtle shifts in my family dynamics. Clara had always been a mystery to me. The coldness in her smile, the way she never quite made an effort to bond with me, the way she distanced herself from me with every passing year. It had all been there. I had been blind to it, or perhaps I just hadn't wanted to see it. Now things were clearer. Clara was hiding something. She had been keeping secrets from Ethan, manipulating him in ways I hadn't even fully grasped until tonight. I couldn't ignore it anymore, and the idea that I might be the one to expose those secrets filled me with both dread and resolve. The next day, Ethan called. I wasn't sure how to answer. I had been pacing my apartment all morning, replaying the dinner in my mind. Would he be angry at me? Would he think I was overstepping? What was going through his mind when I left so abruptly? I took a deep breath before picking up the phone. Mum, Ethan's voice sounded tired, hesitant. I know last night was ... intense, but I really need to talk to you. Can you meet me later? My heart clenched at the sound of his voice. I had spent years trying to protect him from the ugliness in life, trying to shield him from the harsh realities of the world. But here we were, caught in the middle of one of the most uncomfortable situations I'd ever experienced. Still, I couldn't deny that I owed it to him to be there, to explain myself. Of course, Ethan. I'll meet you at the park in an hour, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though my emotions were swirling within me as I made my way to the park. I couldn't shake the image of Clara's smug expression as she sat there, calmly picking at her food while she ripped apart everything I had worked so hard to protect. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much Clara had changed everything. The dynamics had shifted so subtly, and I had let it happen. When I arrived at the park, Ethan was already there, standing near a bench, his hands shoved in his pockets. He looked like a man torn between two worlds, caught between the mother who had raised him and the wife he had chosen. As I walked toward him, I saw the exhaustion in his face, the deep lines of worry creasing his forehead. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Mum, he said, his voice quieter now. I'm sorry for how things went down last night. I don't know what to say. You don't have to apologize, Ethan, I replied, softly, sitting down beside him on the bench. I could feel the tension in the air between us, a weight I had never experienced before. I just couldn't sit there anymore. I couldn't let Clara humiliate me like that. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten, he said, his eyes downcast. I know things haven't been easy between you and Clara, but I never thought it was this bad. I tried to protect you, I said, a lump forming in my throat. I tried to keep things smooth for you, to not get involved. But Clara's not the person I thought she was. She's hiding things from you. Ethan, she's been manipulating you for years. Ethan's expression darkened, but he said nothing. He was struggling, torn between the woman he had married and the mother who had always been there for him. I know it's hard to hear, I continued, my voice trembling. But I can't watch her treat you this way. She's been using you. And I can't just stand by anymore and let her do it. Ethan stayed silent for a long moment, processing what I had said. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft but full of emotion. I never saw it, Mom. I always thought you were the one making things difficult. That maybe you were overreacting. But now I can see it. I can see that you've been right all along. She's not the person I thought she was. She's been hiding things from me. But I don't know what to do about it. You don't have to do anything right now, I said, placing my hand gently on his. But I think you need to know the truth. And I think you need to confront it. Clara is using you, Ethan. She's been hiding things from you, about money, about her plans. She's been keeping secrets that have put a wedge between us. And you need to know. Ethan closed his eyes, the weight of the realization crashing over him. I don't know what to say, Mom. I don't know how I missed it. I should have seen it. I should have protected you. No, Ethan, I said, my voice cracking. I've always been the one trying to protect you. I've been the one who's made the sacrifices, who's been there through everything. But now, it's time for you to protect yourself, and protect your family. We sat in silence for a long while, watching the park go by. The world felt like it was spinning faster than I could catch up with. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had finally said the things I needed to say, and for the first time, Ethan looked like he was finally beginning to understand. The days after my confrontation with Ethan and Clara felt like a fog that I couldn't quite navigate. The tension hung heavily in the air, and I knew that something had shifted not just between me and Clara, but between me and my son as well. The conversation at the park had been eye-opening for Ethan, but I wasn't sure where it would lead. I wanted to believe that Ethan would stand by me, that he would finally see Clara for what she truly was, but the reality was much more complicated. Than that. Ethan didn't reach out for a few days after our talk. It was hard to tell if he was processing everything I had said, or if he was retreating into the comfort of his life with Clara. I couldn't blame him. Marriage, after all, was a bond that ran deep, and breaking it apart was no easy task. But every day that passed without him calling or coming to see me made me feel like the distance between us was growing wider. It wasn't until a week later that I got a message from him. It was a simple text, but it made my heart skip a beat. Mom, can we meet? I need to talk. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as I quickly replied, agreeing to meet him at a small cafe downtown. My mind was racing with questions. What did he need to tell me? Had he confronted Clara? Was he finally starting to see through her carefully constructed facade? When I arrived at the cafe, Ethan was already sitting at a table, looking as though he hadn't slept much. His face was drawn, his eyes tired, and there was an unmistakable air of anxiety around him. I could tell that he had been carrying the weight of something he hadn't yet shared with me. I sat down across from him, offering a small, encouraging smile. What's going on, Ethan? You're scaring me a little here. He glanced up at me, his eyes filled with a mix of frustration and sorrow. Mum, I don't know how to say this, but I need to apologize. I've been blind. For a long time, I've been blind to what's been happening right in front of me. I felt a knot tighten in my chest, but I didn't interrupt him. I let him speak, knowing this moment was crucial. I had waited for it for so long. I confronted Clara, Ethan continued, his voice low, as though ashamed of his actions. I asked her about everything, about the money, about the house, about the things she's been keeping from me. And you were right, Mom. She's been hiding so much from me. She's been manipulating me, and I didn't even see it. I feel like such an idiot. The words felt like a balm to my broken heart. I had known that Ethan would come to this realization, but hearing it from his own mouth made it feel real. He had finally seen Clara for who she truly was, no longer the perfect wife he thought she was, but a woman who had been orchestrating lies, feeding him half-truths, and slowly pulling him away from the people who truly cared for him. Ethan, you're not an idiot, I said softly. You were just ... in love, and love makes you blind sometimes. But I'm so proud of you for seeing the truth now. You didn't deserve any of this. He nodded, running a hand through his hair. I've been so focused on building my life with Clara that I didn't stop to think about the bigger picture. I ignored the signs, Mom. I ignored the way she made. You feel the way she always put on this perfect facade. But now I see it. I see how much she's used me, how much she's kept from me. It's like ... everything's falling apart. I reached across the table, gently placing my hand over his. You don't have to go through this alone, Ethan. I'm here. Always have been, always will be. And whatever happens next, we'll get through it together. Ethan met my gaze, and for the first time in years, I saw the boy I had raised, the one who was full of promise, full of love, full of integrity. The man before me was still my son, but he had been forced to grow up quickly, to face hard truths that no one should have to face. I need to make things right, Mom, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm going to confront Clara. I don't know what will happen after that, but I can't keep pretending. I can't keep living in this lie. I need to stand up for myself, for us, for you. I've let her walk all over me, and I'm done. I felt a tear slip down my cheek, but I quickly wiped it away. This wasn't a moment of sadness, but a moment of pride. My son, the one I had raised through every hardship, was finally standing up for himself. And more importantly, he was standing up for the truth. The next few days were filled with uncertainty. I didn't know what would happen after Ethan confronted Clara. Would she come clean? Or would she try to manipulate him further? Would she try to pull him back in with promises of affection and lies? I didn't hear from Ethan for a few days, which made my heart race with worry. Was he okay? Was he going to be all right after that conversation with Clara? I couldn't help but feel the weight of what he was going through. But then, on a quiet Saturday afternoon, my phone rang. It was Ethan. Mom, he said, his voice strained but with a note of finality. It's done. I confronted Clara, and she didn't take it well. She denied everything, of course. But I pushed her. I made her admit the truth. And when she finally did ... I couldn't believe it. She's been hiding so much about her finances, about her secret investments, about her plan to sell the house and run. She had a whole separate bank account where she'd been funneling money. And now ... I don't know what to do. Ethan, I said, feeling my heart break for him. I know this is hard, but you did the right thing. You faced the truth. And that's all you can do. You don't need to keep carrying her weight anymore. You need to take care of yourself now. I don't know what to do next, he admitted, sounding defeated. She's gone now, Mom. She left. Took some of her things and just disappeared. I don't even know where she's gone. But I feel ... empty. All these years, I thought I was doing the right thing, thinking I could make things work. But now, it's all falling apart and I don't know how to fix it. You don't need to fix it, Ethan, I said gently. You need to heal. You need time to grieve this loss, because it's a loss. But it's also a chance for a new beginning. A new life, free from the lies. Yeah, he said quietly. You're right. I just don't know how to start over. I feel so lost. Take it one step at a time, I said. Start with yourself. Focus on healing. And when you're ready, we'll talk about what comes next. You've got me, Ethan. Always. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. And then Ethan spoke again, his voice steadier now. Thanks, Mum. I needed to hear that. I'm always here for you, I said, a smile tugging at my lips despite the heaviness in my chest. Always. We ended the call, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a glimmer of hope. My son was waking up to the truth, and I was there to help him rebuild his life. Together, we would get through this, just as we always had before. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Ethan and I would face it, side by side. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new for both of us.